Hello and welcome to the Hibs Observer post-match debrief. I think myself, Liam Bryce, and here with Patrick McPartlin, I think we might be the last two remaining here at the National Stadium. And what was ultimately a really, really disappointing night for Hibs. I have to say, it feels like defeat snatched from the jaws of victory, as 10-man at Aberdeen helped themselves to a 1-0 win and booked their place in the Viaplay Cup final at the expense of Nick Montgomery's side. Patrick, no shortage of talking points, right enough, but I mean, what is your overall feeling after that?
Yeah, I think probably a chance missed for Hibs. I think Nick Montgomery would have wanted to get the team to the final for a variety of reasons, not least because that will be one of the team's targets at the start of the season, is to go deep in both domestic cup competitions and to obviously finish as high up the league as possible. But I think it was more the manner of defeat. I think will be like what's causing the most sort of hurt in that dressing room, or well, not anymore because they've gone, but will have caused the most hurt in that dressing room, because for certainly, I would say, large parts of the first half and certainly the start of the second half, Hibs were by far the better team. I think they had, chance after chance after chance, unable to really take any. Obviously, the big talking point was Martin Boyle's goal that was eventually chalked off for offside, which we'll look at in a little bit. But I think really the best way to sum it up is defeat snatched with the jaws of victory. Hibs were in the ascendancy. Aberdeen get a man sent off, and I think everyone in the stadium would have thought Hibs are probably favourites to go on and get to the final, whether that was through extra time, penalties, or normal time, whatever. But instead, the sending off Jack McKenzie for second yellow card for an off the ball shove on Lewis Miller just really seemed to galvanise Aberdeen. And I think certainly towards the end of the game, Hibs looked like the team with a man less than their opponents, and really it's just it's disappointing for the fans who would have been looking for not just a chance to come back to Hampden in December, but also just a reaction from Tuesday night's performance, which started off well, but then ultimately petered out into a 2-2 draw when really they should have taken the 3 points. So yeah, I think ultimately disappointment from not getting to Hampden, disappointment from not being able to kind of bounce back from Tuesday night, and just losing to 10 men and those key instances which we'll talk about. A really kind of disappointing trip to the National Stadium for Hibs.
Yeah, I think, as you say, we'll come on to some of the incidents in a moment, but I just feel like the bottom line is playing against 10 men already. I feel Hibs were the better team. Aberdeen get a man sent off. I just think it's no matter what, I just think you can't not win that game from that position, and it's just at the moment it feels a bit like Hibs are finding ways not to win games that they should be winning. We saw it Ross County during the week there. I think you could even maybe go back to the Dundee goalless draw, and obviously it was kind of excused at the time because it was Nick Montgomery's first game. Kilmarnock, they found a way not to win that game. So I think I think that is the bottom line, and that I'm maybe veering away from the game a wee bit here, but I think there's a danger of that starting to take a toll psychologically, because I think that'll be the toughest thing tonight. Because I think they'll look back at the performance, and I think when you analyse it in the kind of cold light of day and with sort of with kind of no emotion around it, there was stuff to like about the performance. Obviously changes to the team, a few guys out injured, not a lot of depth on the bench, but again we'll probably come to. There was kind of things to like about it. Hibs were the better side, but it's just the psychological damage that you worry about that comes with having another game where you really should be getting over the line, and Hibs have just managed to find a way not to. I think that'll be the biggest disappointment. Obviously, there was a lot of frustration and the support at full time, a lot of frustration around us where we were in the media area, and it was it's completely understandable because it's a huge opportunity missed. Obviously you don't want to. Aberdeen found a way to win the game with 10 men, but I didn't feel like they showed an awful lot over the 90 minutes. But they do have a match winner and Bojan Miovski. There's no doubt about that. And again, when you've got a player like that, even when you're down to 10 men, you're in with a chance. And it was his first opportunity, I think, and he puts it away. He's clinical. But yeah, just coming back to Hibs, I mean, it's a real tough one to take. And I think there's, again, the big talking point from a Hibs perspective before the actual result itself will be the Martin Boyle disallowed goal for offside. I'm sure you have all have seen it back by now in granular detail. That it's so tight, it's unbelievably tight, and there's that kind of confusion around the stadium as well when everybody's just kind of waiting for a decision. And obviously Nick Montgomery addressed it afterwards, and obviously in his opinion, he's quite adamant that it takes far too long. He didn't feel it was clear and obvious, which again I don't think that necessarily comes into it with offside calls. But I mean, that was a kind of sore one to take for Hibs, just considering how close it was.
Yeah, and I think we see this quite a lot with every kind of similar decision in England is certainly scrutinised and replayed over and over again, and there's big discussions and there's apologies from the referees kind of organisation when they get it wrong, and there's obviously there's a lot of attention given to it. And I think, I mean, Nick Montgomery said a lot of things in his post-match about the offside decision. See people asking about the penalty as well, which we'll come on to. But he obviously felt it wasn't clear and obvious, as you've said. That doesn't really come into offsides, but it did take a long time for it to be eventually ruled out, which I think gives some indication of just how close it was. Yep. Montgomery talked about the lines being very close, practically touching Boyle and the Aberdeen defender. Is what he said in his post-match kind of debrief, and I think he kind of touched on the fact that that the attacker probably should get the benefit of the doubt if it's that close. And I think probably the fact it took so long to decide that it was offside probably took a little bit of the wind out of Hibs' sails. You could see how the fans celebrated the goal. You could see how the players celebrated the goal. You could see how Montgomery celebrated the goal. It was big. It came at a really good time for Hibs. They'd been in the ascendancy in the start of the second half. And yeah, I mean, let's not turn this into another debate about VAR. Otherwise, they'll have to drag us. They will have to drag us kicking and screaming from the depths of Hampden where we are at the moment. But it's, I kind of get the point that if it's taking that long to decide that he's offside and it's so tight, it's why is he not getting the benefit of the doubt? Yeah, that's a sort of big thing for me.
Before VAR, the benefit of the doubt did tend to go to the attacker. Before these,
I think
before
right.
it came in, I feel like that's the way they used to do it. But again, it's like one of those. Like, what can you do now? It's one that Hibs are going to have to take on the chin, isn't it? As tough as it was.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a shout for a penalty as well that Hibs had. Dylan Vente going down under pressure from Kellerush, the Aberdeen goalkeeper, just near the touchline. And obviously we spoke to Nick Montgomery afterwards, and he was kind of disappointed. I would imagine that one wasn't looked at.
Yeah, I think his big sort of confusion with that was that it wasn't looked at all. Certainly at the time, I mean, we have the benefit of having TV screens at the media section at Hampden, so we can see sort of replay straight away, which is a big advantage. I didn't think initially. I didn't think there was much call for a penalty. I think the more you look at it back and the contact that Roos makes with Vente, that it's regardless of whether or not we think it's a penalty, it does look like the kind of thing that when you consider what they do send for review on the VAR screen.
Yeah, I think it was surprising for a review. Because I think there's one angle that I can see it from where I'm looking at it, and I think, well, I don't know about that. It looks as if Vente is sort of anticipating the contact, as they say these days. But then there's another one where I feel like you can sort of see Roos making contact with his leg, and you can see it in the kind of the motion. So it's, again, whether we could debate, and I'm sure people will for days to come, whether it was a penalty or not. But I do find it bizarre that if it wasn't given like a kind of thorough review, I think it merited at least that. Whether or not you come to a conclusion either way, at least you can say, well, it was thoroughly checked, it was thoroughly looked at. It didn't seem to be, but after that, Aberdeen going down to 10 men and what can only be described as a massive head loss from young Jack McKenzie.
Yeah.
That was a crazy one, to be honest. But I just don't. I feel like it. I don't know how you felt, but Aberdeen, it almost seemed to suit Aberdeen to then going with 10 men, because they just sank back into their shape. They've got those kind of three sort of physically imposing centre backs. You've got the likes of Graham Shinney in there, who kind of knows these sort of situations inside out. He's as kind of streetwise as they come. And then they would have always felt, again, as with hindsight, justifiably so, that with Miovski on the pitch, you've always get a chance of scoring. But I feel like it. I mean, it shouldn't do, but it almost sort of hindered Hibs to be playing against 10 men, because then it becomes a different type of game. When it was a bit more open, I thought they were finding spaces. Vente has that chance where somehow Nicky Devlin's managed to clear it off the line. I think 9 times out of 10 that ends up in the goal. But I don't know how you felt about that. It was when it went to 11v10. I don't think Hibs handled that particularly well.
I don't think they did, and I think you can look at how Hibs maybe reacted to certainly the offside goal, and potentially the non-award, or at least the non-review of the penalty. And some teams react to what they sense as injustice by thinking, right, well, if we're not going to get any favours here from the officials, we just have to go and do it ourselves. I mean, Montgomery, in fairness, did say in his post-match press conference that the two key incidents were not the reason that Hibs lost the game, but obviously they didn't help them. He felt they changed the direction of the game, which I think is probably fair enough. The sending off, I don't think, like you say, I don't think you can really argue with it. It's a clear second yellow card. It's just, I mean, it's just daft. It's it's a 50-50. Lewis Miller is he's a big physical player. He's kind of, I suppose,
give him a wee
bit of a nudge, but you see that at pitches up and down the country, every weekend, and it's a petulant shove. I don't really think anyone of a red persuasion could have had any sort of issue with that, but it did seem to galvanise Aberdeen, and they did seem to think, well, this is, it's kind of, I mean, maybe it did them a favour because they thought we've got nothing to lose, and it maybe gave them a bit of freedom to go and do what they did. I mean, Barry Robson was saying afterwards, Aberdeen are not a counter-attacking team, and don't think they are. And I think the irony is as well that part of the reason that they were so successful in that counter-attack, from which they scored the goal, was that Jack McKenzie wasn't there, so there was more space.
Yeah, there was a huge gap down that side. Yeah, it was kind of wasn't great from a Hibs perspective, really, was it? To be honest.
No, and I think you listen to what Montgomery said afterwards. He felt the side did play well, but I think he also accepted that it is a results business, and that kind of responsibility lies with him. He made reference, or thinly veiled reference, to games that Hibs have drawn and they should have won, such as Tuesday night against Ross County, and just sort of he was talking about being game smart, talking about game management, and I think that's what the next step for Hibs really is.
Yep.
I mean, there are quite a lot of young players in that team. When you look today, there's 3 academy players on the bench. 2 of them, Josh Landers and Rory Whittaker, come off the bench. That's 2 16-year-olds in a national semi-final. And we touched on squad depth before. There's really not a lot there. But it does feel like the next kind of step for Hibs is just being a bit more kind of savvy in games where they're maybe leading, or it's goalless, and you're looking for an opening, you're looking for that first goal. And I think I don't think you can argue with that assessment. I think Hibs did play well in a lot of parts of today's game. I think towards the end, the last 10 minutes or so, it does become a little bit shelling balls into the box and hoping for the best. But I mean, Montgomery again touched on this. I think that must have been a little bit of desperation, a little bit of trying to find something, to force the game to extra time. But I think, I mean, he said as well that he feels the side is evolving into a good footballing side, and I don't think we can argue with that. I think they do look a lot better. They look a lot more organised. There's still the odd sort of individual mistake that we've seen, but I think progress is being made, and I think the next step is to kind of manage games a bit better, to ensure that these games that are drawn or not drawn, that they result in 3 points, and that in situations like this, when Hibs are maybe faced with a bit of adversity, such as goals ruled out for offside, penalty shouts not being looked at, that they need to find another way of kind of winning, or they need to find another way of getting into the game. And I think that will come with time.
Yeah.
I think that I know there'll be a lot of people who are concerned with Montgomery's only won 2 of his 9 games in charge in all competitions, and that doesn't look great. But at the same time, there has been progress made, and it's maybe a little bit slow for the time being. He's been unlucky maybe with injuries to key players. Certainly, I think for me, Hibs missed Jago today in the middle of the park. They missed having Adam Lafondra to be able to call upon either off the bench or from the start. Somebody with that experience who's played similar games like this in the past in his career. But yeah, I just think it's frustrating because you can see that progress has been made, but Hibs are not really getting the rewards for that. So they're doing everything up to everything up to the good performances, but they're just not getting the results that the performances deserve, and that's really what they need to work on next. That's what they need to change. And I mean, Wednesday night in Paisley would be a great time to start doing that. But again, that's you look at how well St Mirren have been playing. That's going to be another test.
Yeah. And just finally, a question from Graham Middleton. Thanks for sending that in, Graham. He wants to know how Martin Boyle is. Nick Montgomery did speak about that afterwards. He didn't seem too concerned about him. I only caught the end of it.
Yeah, I think he sort of made reference to the fact that he'd rested Boyle on Tuesday against Ross County, brought him off the bench. And he's pointing out that I think when you include international games, Boyle's played more minutes than I think any other Hibs player or any other sort of regular starter. And he just felt something. Which is why I think they took him off just as a precaution. I think they're going to look at him tomorrow and basically assess whether he's going to be available for Wednesday night. But I think Nick Montgomery at least seemed hopeful that he'd be back in contention, at least he said, for next week. So that could be next weekend. It could be midweek, but we will find out. Hopefully nothing too serious, because I think certainly saw flashes, not just the goal that was ruled out, but there were flashes from Boyle today that just showed how important a player he can be for Hibs when he is on top form. And unfortunately the lucky boots didn't work this time around, but there's still a lot of games left to be played. So hopefully Martin Boyle can contribute to Hibs starting to get some of those results that they so badly need at the moment, and turning some of those draws into victories.
Yeah. Okay, folks, that's all from us this evening before we get forcibly removed from the National Stadium for staying long past our welcome. But we've got kind of all the reaction to tonight's game on the Hibs Observer website from ourselves, and you can read everything that Nick Montgomery had to say about the game, and also watch that video on our YouTube channel. There'll be more reaction to come tomorrow, and then after that it's about building into the St Mirren game in midweek, which kind of goes without saying that utmost importance now. But as for tonight, thanks as always for joining us, and we'll see you next midweek.